What's good, YouTube? It's been a minute since we have done a live stream. Let me turn this down. Look like I'm up too loud. All right, let's see how that go. Is that better? Let's see. A little better? Yeah. All right, let's go. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that has been hot in the industry. I've done a couple of interviews with a few people talking about this topic, and the topic just seems to keep getting hotter and hotter. We're talking about the cloud. For those of you that love working on other people's computers and are in the industry or looking to get in the industry and want to be in the hottest industry right now, I have with you a brother that's only been in the industry 4 years and he's already an SRE doing big things at a company that's doing some major things in the industry. Right now, I'm going to introduce you to, if maybe you already following, maybe you don't. If you haven't, his contact information is in the description. But what's good, Reggie?
Man, what's good with you? What's good with you? I'm so excited to be here. I really appreciate the love.
Man, I'm excited that you're here, bro. We did an interview with my boy Aaron, Mastermind,
Man,
a couple weeks ago, and it was really good. You shared some dope information. And to only have been in the industry 4 years, like your knowledge is just, it's on fire, bro. Like, it's inspiring.
man, I really appreciate it. I definitely I will admit if it wasn't for some other people in the game that I was able to look up to along the way, especially people like yourself, I don't think I'm at where I'm at. So I really need to pay homage to all the people that came before me, to be real with you. I just kind of took what y'all put out there and ran with it. To be real with it, just took it and ran with it, didn't overthink it.
I think that's a dope way to start this off because right now is a great time to enter the industry because we have people like yourself, Aaron, Shayla, Gifted Lane, Gerard, Kev Tech, IT support. All of these people look just like us and they're sharing the game and helping people get to where they want to be in IT. So how'd you get started, bro?
Oh man, so I got started about 5 years ago. I was actually working on a podcast. I was working on a podcast for a friend, and basically I went to a podcast event, and I actually got cool with some guys from a podcast hosting company called Buzzsprout. I got really cool with those guys. And long story short, one of the guys that took a liking to me said, "Hey, would you be interested in learning how to program?" I said, "Sure, why not?" I think at the time they were using like Ruby on Rails, so I went and learned Ruby on Rails. And that's really kind of how the journey started. I started kind of doing a little programming, and I basically got good enough until I got my first job as a support developer at this small company in Houston. And while I was there, there was only one person on the admin side. I'll never forget this. I'm thinking from a survival standpoint. Like the way my mom taught me is like, shit, you want to work with the people, you want to work in a department where they need help. They need people that want to come in and do the things because somebody got to take a day off, somebody need to go on vacation, something. And so that's what I did. And it was a gentleman by the name of Luke who actually introduced me to the cloud. And so he started teaching me about Linux. He started teaching me about the cloud. And I was kind of like, okay, we had some stuff in AWS. And so I did a little bit more research whenever I kind of got home and was like, I found out about this AWS Solutions Architect exam. And from there, I took it and everything was up from there, to be honest with you. That's really kind of when it really turned up.
Hey, I love that. I want to rewind. So you started in software development, right?
Yep.
Did you self-study? Did you go to college? Did you do a boot camp? How'd you get started with that?
I self-study, man. I'm gonna be 100 with you. I did not want to go. First off, I wasn't going back to school because I didn't like school and I didn't want to go into debt. I didn't want to go to a boot camp because I felt like a boot camp was gonna be, I think at the time it's like 13, 14,000 for like 3 or 4 months of study, but I would have had to quit my job. And I would have went all in on that. And I just wasn't willing to quit my job and just lose my source of income.
Right.
So I kind of really sat down with myself and said, okay, you can go figure it out on your own. Granted, it might take you a little bit longer, but at least you don't have to deal with the overhead of like debt. You don't have to deal with that overhead of debt. So I just I just buckled down and I was like, okay, like let me find some resources online and let me like teach myself how to program. That's really kind of how the journey really began.
How long was that journey?
Honestly, man, it took me about a year really to figure it out. Granted, I didn't know what I was doing. So I think I could have for sure cut that time down from a year to 6 months with the proper mentorship,
Right.
with the proper people around me. But I don't know. I'm a stickler for pain, so I just I just kind of kept grinding it out and just trying to figure it out along the way.
Dope. And so when you were doing the process of learning software development, did you start on front end, back end, programming? How did you start?
Front end, man. So first thing I learned was HTML, CSS. That's kind of like the entry point to it all. Like I learned HTML, CSS, and then I kind of started getting into more of the Ruby on Rails stuff, right? So
Yeah.
getting more into the back end of it, because at the time whenever I was doing Rails, I didn't know what a front end or a back end was. I knew what HTML, CSS was. I knew what Ruby was, but I didn't know the difference between the two.
Right.
So I was just programming really just Rails, like using the Rails CLI, and just kept generating projects and kept trying to make the same blog site over and over again till it made sense. Like that's literally what I did like every day. I just kept making the same blog site over and over again.
Yeah, that's dope. We about to shift to that cloud because I want to know when you got started with the cloud. But before we do, I want to give a shout out to everybody that's watching. We got about 47 people watching. We need to get them likes up. And I want y'all to share this on your social media because the game that Reggie is giving is 100, is solid, and is definitely going to help a ton of people. So let's get the word out. Thank you. Now, when we talk about you being a software developer, being in your first position, and you saw the opportunity for the cloud, how long in that position before you started focusing on learning AWS?
Man, I was in that position for about 4 or 5 months, to be honest with you. Cause like the thing about development was this is one thing I figured out really quickly into my career. Everybody was trying to be programmers. Everybody was trying to be a programmer. Everybody wanted to do some type of app development, the whole nine. That was like the hotness, right? Because clearly, you could program, you could build apps or features and stuff like that. There's a lot of money in that. But once I started really understanding how the technology worked, I started looking at apps like houses, right? And when I was at that small agency, that's what really kind of defined like how apps appear. That's how I built my mental model. I was like, okay, a client comes in, we might spend 3 to 6 months building an app for them, right? They spend however many thousands of dollars on getting the app built. But where we was really making the money was we were making the money on the maintenance. We were making the money on the upkeep of it. Yeah. So like, okay, just like a house, you might build a house in 3 to 6 months, but it got to last for 30 years. And guess what you need? You need people that know roofs to come by and inspect it. You need people that do plumbing, that come out and fix the toilets. You need people to come and check the foundation, check the AC, do all the things, right? Like that's kind of really how I started looking at it. And I was like, okay, hold up. Like if that's the case, then what if I start focusing more on the operation side? What if I start focusing more on the admin side? Because that's going to be, you're going to have that forever. These apps, this tech not going nowhere.
Right.
And that's what really made me start switching from like, let's go from like app development and feature development into more like operations and stuff like that. And at that time, as far as operations were concerned, a lot of people, the cloud just started becoming like a thing where people were moving more and more stuff into. So I was like, okay, like let's just focus on the cloud. If everybody going from on-prem and having their own service to just like, let's just throw it in the cloud, like that's where I'm gonna put my energy.
It's dope. I think it's for myself, when I'm learning new technologies and I'm in a new position, it's always dope to like come up with an analogy. And I think being 3 to 4 months in and seeing the big picture and how all those moving pieces come together, man, you pick up things quick, and that's a dope trait to have, bro.
Man, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. I think that's the thing about technology. I want to preach to everybody. It's like you just got to find a mental model that works for you. Once you find a mental model that works for you, man, it just makes understanding the tech so much easier. You know what I'm saying? Once you understand how things work in your head and you can at least explain that to somebody and they're like, oh, okay. Like once you get there, it's gonna help a lot. It's gonna help a lot in your career, in your personal life, explaining what you do to people, like the whole nine.
Hey, let me ask you this before we get really dive into this cloud game. Did you have imposter syndrome coming from a different field into IT?
Still do. Still do. Like, man, like it don't go away. Matter of fact, it probably got worse. Like it probably got worse. It's like because it's like you learn and you're like, okay, bet I leveled up. I understand this, I understand that now. But the other side of like leveling up is like you might be around other people that didn't level up too.
Yeah.
And so now they got a whole different set of knowledge and understanding the system that you may not necessarily have. So it's always going to be somebody out there that got a better jump shot than you, that might have a better crossover than you, that might can jump a little bit higher than you. But at the end of the day, you really kind of got to get comfortable with your own skill set and what you're really good at. Like that's kind of like the whole thing. But the imposter syndrome ain't never gonna go away. And I mean, fairly enough, I feel like it just come with the game at this point. It just really come with the game.
Man, I've been in this game 20 years and I still deal with imposter syndrome, bro. Like, I'm telling you, man, you beyond your years with your knowledge and the way you look at this industry. For real.
Oh, man. Like I said, I learned from y'all and I just was like, all right, cool. We just gonna do. Like at the end of the day, the imposter syndrome gonna be there. But I think the one thing about tech that I learned really quickly was like, it's about doing. Mm-hmm. It's about just do, get into that mindset of doing. It don't got to be perfect. You know what I'm saying? A lot of time we get so caught up in it being perfect and we overanalyze our moves and how we want to do things. But at the end of the day, if you just do it, it's going to get better with that repetitive action. Like I said, I was building the same blog site every day on Rails, like every single day I was building the same thing, but it got better though.
Yeah. All right. So when you started going for AWS, you were 3 months into your position and you saw how everything came together when it comes to developing the app and you got into the cloud. So how long did it take you to get that AWS Solutions Architect cert?
About 4 months, front to back. It took me about 4 months. It was a different kind of beast because at that time I had zero knowledge of networking. Like, and that's true be told, that's like the biggest hurdle going into the cloud is understanding the networking. Like you go for a solutions architect exam, man, they're gonna be talking about regions and AZs. And if a company wants an application to scale out in 3 different regions, and if the region goes down and yada, 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 you like, what? I gotta set up a a VP, huh? Like all of that was like brand spanking new to me. So I think it probably took me a little bit more time than probably what it really should have, just because I was coming into it so brand new. But I mean, yeah, like I locked in. I turned, when I say I just removed distractions and locked in on that one thing, I removed all distractions and locked in on that one certification.
Yo, removing those distractions is important. I don't think that can be stressed enough. We got social media, we're in the middle of a pandemic. You got your job, you got your family. So my question to you is, how did you remove those distractions and how did you buckle down and focus while working a full-time job to get the cert?
Oh man, look. Let me tell you something. This game is not without sacrifice. Let me go ahead and put that out there. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody want to talk about the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow when it comes to tech. Like you're not getting there without no type of sacrifice. And I think one of the first things I really had to sit down and realize was like, long term, what am I really doing this for? Like, am I really in this to get that salary that I keep seeing when I look up, a cloud engineer salary? Because that salary, like, let's not get it twisted. It's real. I hand up to God, it's real. like it's legit. Them numbers that's no cap. But it's gonna take some sacrifice. Like, and for me, what I had to really do was at that time, I had to get grounded within myself. And I had to really sit down and like tell some of the people around me, like, look, man, I'm rocking with y'all, but what I'm trying to do right now is greater than anything that's happening. Like I need to just focus on that, and I need to make sure that I communicated that to the people so that they could support me in the way that I needed to be supported. Because the reality is that it's so easy to pick up that phone. You know what I'm saying? It's so easy to go to that Twitter, go look it up real quick, go hit World Star Hip Hop, go put on a new album, go get drinks with your friends and the whole nine. But as that time keeps passing by and you kind of sitting there looking like, man, I can't stand my job. I'm trying to get out my job as soon as possible. I'm trying to get out the situation as soon as possible. Like at the end of the day, that's a decision that's on you.
Right.
And I really use that as my big motivation on removing those distractions, because at the end of the day, I wasn't, even though I was happy and grateful for my position, that first position I had, I only was making like $35,000 a year. I wasn't making no money. You know what I'm saying? Like I took a hit to get my first job in tech. And that's kind of the dark side of like teaching yourself, because when you teach yourself and you're not coming in with like no legit credential, whether it be a bootcamp certification or a degree or anything like that, guess what? You're gonna have to take whatever somebody give you. And one thing I knew I didn't want to do was I didn't want to linger around in that position for too long, because I didn't want to get comfortable at that salary. So like that's what really kind of really just put that fire underneath me, like on some like, man, nah, this time next year, man, I got to be making double. So I locked in. Like I for real locked in.
That's dope. And I want to talk about that transition. But before we do, we got a question from Marvin Anderson. And that question is, what made you learn AWS instead of Azure?
Azure? No, I'm just playing. Nah, man, I learned AWS because AWS is the big name in the game. Like, it's just like anything. I mean, if I want to learn about basketball, I'm not gonna go to the Milwaukee. Well, I mean,
they the champs. You was about to
Let me not say that. I'm not gonna go to the Orlando Magic to learn basketball. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go to the Lakers. I'm gonna go to an established organization and figure out how. All right, this is probably how it's really done at a high level, and that's how I was with AWS. When I did the research on who was the biggest cloud provider, it was AWS by far, and they had the certifications on lock. So at that time, it made the most sense because the most people were on AWS. I just really went with the numbers, to be honest with you. I didn't overthink it. I just went with the numbers, because if it's more, it was way more AWS jobs out there than there were Azure jobs. Azure just wasn't hip like that yet. Their platform was still pretty immature at the time. So that's really why I went with AWS over Azure.
Now, for someone that's looking to get one of those certs now, does that still ring true today?
Repeat that question.
For someone that's looking to get an AWS or Azure cert now, does the numbers between the two service providers ring true today as far as AWS being way bigger than Azure?
Oh, well, the numbers, yeah. AWS is still way bigger than Azure, for sure. Azure is definitely made up some ground. But AWS is still the biggest name in the game. And if you go into a lot of these environments, these cloud environments, 9 times out of 10, man, they got something in Azure. I mean, they got something in AWS, period. And a lot of times you'll see a majority of the system set up in AWS, and they might have some stuff in Azure, but they might not necessarily use all of the services and features that Azure offers the way that they may use with AWS. Like AWS, you'll see people using DNS, VPC, you'll see them use all of those things. Whereas in maybe Azure, they might just be using servers or something like that. But AWS is still the number one name in the game when it comes to the cloud. So I always tell people, if you're going to learn the cloud, you got to start with AWS.
Dope. Appreciate that. All right. So it took you about 4 months to get the AWS Solutions Architect cert.
Mm-hmm.
And you're still about 8 months into your first position in IT.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you make a transition after getting that certification?
Shoot, probably within 1 to 2 months.
Man,
like once I got that cert, it was like, yo, it's up. Like it's up. Like I'm gone. Like I already knew what it was because I was ready for that next move. I ain't gonna lie. Like one thing about tech that I realized, and this, and honestly, getting that certification and making that first step to transition to another company taught me a critical lesson when it comes to tech. Like when you ready to bump, when you ready to move up, when you ready to go, like go. You know what I'm saying? Go. Don't drag your feet. Don't, well, I want to wait it out, so on and so forth. No, like go. Go. Why that energy is high? Because it's so easy to kind of get caught up in those imposter thoughts or get into that, man, I might not be good enough or blah 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 blah. Man, just go when you're ready. And then you can figure out the rest later. Like you can really you might not necessarily be ready the way you want to be, but at least you in the position, at least you got the title, at least you got the money, at least you got the things, and then you can kind of figure it out from there.
Right, right, right. Before we keep going, I want to give a shout out to everybody that's tuning in. Shout out to the moderators in the chat. The moderators hold us down, and I really do appreciate y'all. So if y'all have questions, drop them in the chat. I'm going to do my best to get to them. If I don't, we got a ton of moderators that are in the cloud, network engineers, software developers that are moderators and are going to answer the questions that you have, along with Reggie, who's dropping his game. Now, all right, so a month after getting the certification, you went and got your first job. What job was that? What was the job title?
And it was I was working for this company called Blinds. They're a subsidiary of Home Depot.
Okay.
Man, that interview was such an interesting interview. I can't even lie, but that was the next company I went to. It was a subsidiary of Home Depot as a cloud engineer.
Cloud engineer. Okay. Okay. This is a perfect transition. And this is my first question when it comes to getting into the cloud. What skills are needed for a cloud engineer?
Ooh, that's a great question. If I had to nail it down to most critical skill, I'm gonna say you need to have some Linux chops. You need to have some command line chops, some CLI chops. And when I say command line chops, I'm not saying just being able to echo some text file out. It's a couple things I would say you need to understand. Number one, understand the basics of like networking, how networking works on an operating system. I think that's super duper important, especially once you start talking about like container technology and things like that. That's going to become a thing. Outside of that, you need to also be able to have a pretty solid understanding of file systems, how to work your way around file systems. I think that's pretty important. And then, just some scripting knowledge, to be honest with you, just know how to put some scripts together. I think you'll be pretty good. So between the networking on the operating system, definitely understanding how the file system works, and then just having some scripting stuff, those are going to be pretty big. But once you kind of start getting outside the world of just operating systems, I'd be lying if I said you got to know containers, man. Like you got to know a Docker, you got to know Kubernetes. You just got to know those things. If you don't, it's going to be really hard to kind of transition into the cloud game, because even if a company does not use it right now, I guarantee you they're thinking about transitioning to it. You know what I'm saying? So even having the chops to be able to help a company transition in that period from maybe going from like an application that has like MVC architecture or something like that to like a more microservice architecture, I think that's going to help you a lot. So obviously, like I said, Linux administration, container technology, and just some solid understanding on like just architecture and infrastructure. That's going to be really, really difficult to get away from if you're going to be a cloud engineer, because 9 times out of 10, you're supporting developers. Right. The developers are just developing the code, the application, maybe the actual business logic, but you may be actually responsible for the actual infrastructure, the deployment of it, and things of that nature. So having some level of understanding of architecture and infrastructure is going to be pretty critical too.
Yo, that's dope. And I think the question that I have with that, did your first position give you a lot of that knowledge, or did the certification give you that knowledge?
Man, truth be told, the certification really set the foundation. It really did a really good job of setting the foundation of at least understanding what the critical components of what a cloud engineer is, right? Understanding the architecture and the infrastructure, and also understanding how it's mapped to business, like the business processes, because that's another thing about being a cloud engineer that I started really learning, is that like a lot of people go into the cloud because they want to save money, right? Like they want to cut costs. They either want to make money or they want to save money. They might want to save money because they want to use resources that they don't necessarily need to use, or they want to make money because they want to scale way quicker than what they've been able to do. So once you kind of understand that, then it really kind of makes it a lot easier to understand what parts of the infrastructure and what parts of the architecture are actually mission critical to the business and what the business is going to actually care about as far as like what's saving us X amount of dollars per month, what's going to help us scale faster per month. So the certification helped out a lot with that. And then outside of that, I would definitely say, man, community helped me out a lot. Like befriending developers, befriending architects and security people and stuff like that, and just kind of picking a brain and picking knowledge on like what's important. They helped a lot too.
Yeah, that's I think community is a major thing in this industry, especially now. You know, with the internet, with Twitter, with LinkedIn, Discord, and all these different platforms, you're able to connect with like-minded individuals, whether they look like you or not. You know, you can find your tribe right now.
Straight up.
Dope.
Straight up.
All right, so before we talk about your next cloud engineer position, here's a question that a lot of people have when it comes to getting into the cloud. What are some entry-level cloud job titles?
Entry-level cloud job titles. That's the weird thing about the cloud. Like you don't really see junior positions.
Right. Exactly.
Truth be told, my first position, the official title was senior web ops engineer.
Wow.
And it required 5 to 10 years of experience. And it was like, I was in there with 8 months of experience, trying to interview for a job that required 5 to 10 years of experience. I'm just in there like in the interview, like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I don't know. So it's not really a lot of junior level positions that I've seen out there, to be quite frank. I mean, if anything, I would say DevOps is probably going to be the closest thing to kind of more of a junior or closer to a junior level, or may have a junior level DevOps engineer position, because I know from SRE standpoint, it ain't no junior level SREs out there. It's most of the SREs you're going to find are going to be pretty experienced. But I think at bigger companies like Google, you might have maybe junior level SREs, but they not from a skill level or understanding level. They not really junior, not as much as the title will say it is.
Okay. I got a super chat from Mitchell Valentino. Thank you for the super chat. And if you got a question, drop it in the chat. But it looks like they're just giving a shout out. It says, great guests and great questions. I appreciate you guys sharing so much real world knowledge. Respect. We appreciate you too. Thank you. All right. Going back to that interview, bro, because you said you applied for a job with 8 months experience. Like, hold up. Before we even start, y'all need to hit the like button, because he about to get some game, because so many people that are looking to get in tech or looking to advance in tech, they see these positions out there that require 5 to 10 years experience, and they're either afraid to apply for them or they don't think they're qualified for them. So my question to you, Reggie, is how did you apply for that position? Were you confident, or did you just go like just applying for everything? And when you got when you walked into the interview, was it an intimidating interview?
Was it an intimidating interview? Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Was I confident going into it? No. Not at all, bro. Like, I was like, bro, I ain't got no business applying for this position. But you know what? The reason why I applied from it, man, I got some major game, man. Shout out to one of my mentors in the game, Tamika. She runs Women in Linux. She has a YouTube channel. It's called Women in Linux. She's definitely one of, man, when I say major influence, because even before going into the position, man, she was one of the people I talked to, and she told me straight up, she was like, the worst thing they can tell you is no.
Right.
Like, that was like her whole thing. Like, she was just like, try it. Like, forget it. Just go for it. I mean, you know, and be honest about your, you know what I'm saying? Just be honest. But what they gonna say? No. She really kind of put that thought process of like creating a feedback loop. And I think sometimes when we look at those positions and we only got 1 year or 2 years of experience, and they say it needs 5 to 10 years of experience and so on and so forth, we don't even attempt to try for it, because we're just like, well, we're underqualified for. Well, you don't know what you're underqualified for, to be honest with you, because you really don't know what the needs of that company is. And you really don't know how many people have applied for the position, what kind of people apply for the position. And also, you're not even taking into account what makes you unique, right? Like the way you see the technology, the way you approach the technology could be unique enough, or it could be different enough to where they're like, okay, cool, we'll take a chance on this.
Right.
And even if they don't take a chance on you, the best thing that you could do is get more information on where you need to improve. So actually having a feedback loop, shoot for a job that requires 10 years of experience and let them tell you no. And then you sit there and you ask them, well, why? Well, why am I not good enough? Where do I need to improve? Where did y'all see me fall short? I think sometimes we look at those, we look at those attempts as like, if it doesn't work out, then shit, we fell short or we failed. But really, you really just gaining more information for the next position or for the next skill that you want to learn. So, I mean, the worst thing they can say is no. I wasn't confident at all. And when I went into that interview, man, they was asking me questions about stuff. I was like, look, man, I have no clue what you're talking about right now, but could you explain it to me? Like, what is that? You know what I'm saying? What do you mean by TLS SSL certificate rotation? What do you mean by this? What's that? I took those as opportunities to learn, to be honest with you. And I think that's what actually ended up impressing them. Instead of me going into the interview and just acting like I know everything, oh man, I know all the things. Like when I didn't know an answer, when I know the answer to the question, I just was like, man, I don't know, but could you explain it to me?
Right.
I humbled myself the entire time. You know what I'm saying? Like I never, and I've done that with every job that I've taken on at this point. Man, I never try to go into a position acting like I know more than what I really know. I take, you know, hey, this is what I know. This is where I'm at. And if I don't know it, I just say, I don't know. Like, I don't want to lie to you and paint this picture that I know more than what I do. And then I get into the position and you expecting me to be able to follow through with a task, and I can't follow through with it because guess what? I lied to you in the interview about a skill set that I have that I really don't.
True story.
So I just kept it a buck. And I think that's what really made it work.
Man, that's inspiring. And I hope, you know, the audience is soaking this up, because one thing that you said that really stands out is that you don't know what makes you unique about the position. You know what I mean? You don't know the requirements of that company. You don't know who interviewed before you, you know? Like, I think a lot of times we count ourselves out before we even, you know, get a chance to be in an opportunity or even get in an interview. So that's dope.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. I always say be open. Just be open. Just be open. Don't be afraid of rejection, and always just be looking for ways to improve. And always just go for stretch positions. Just continue to go for stretch positions. Like that's the name of the game. That's really gonna be the only way you grow. I don't become an SRE in less than 5 years if I don't take a bunch of stretch positions. So go for it.
Yo, and shout out to your mentor, Tamika, and Women of Linux. I need to find her YouTube channel and put it in the chat. If one of the moderators can find that YouTube channel, put it in the chat. Because we need more people, you know, to step up and take people under the wing, show them the game. So anybody that's doing that, I'm always going to show love to. So that's dope. I got a super chat from the coach. Thank you for the super chat. It says, my man Reggie took that cloud interview with Similac on his breath. So much respect, bro. Your belief is contagious. Out there with the infamy of like.
It says Similac. Hey, that's real though. I really did though. I still got Similac on my breath. I ain't gonna cap.
Straight up.
I ain't gonna cap. I still got Similac on my breath.
Hey, that's dope. We got another super chat before we move on. Savage Scientist, thank you for the super chat. It says, I've been at IBM. They hired me as an Azure dev, but I'm still doing SAP crap. Also, we need more women of color in Linux. Dope. We do.
Facts, man. Go check out Tamika. She a beast. Like, yo, Tamika, man, she was giving me game before any of this stuff got into fruition. She was talking about Terraform, Kubernetes, just everything. Like, she really understands the game and on a level that not many people not many people really are operating on, and she's early on it. Like she's super early on it. So I mean, you want to see more women in Linux, man? Definitely go support Tamika over there at Women in Linux, because she giving next level game. Like, and she been doing it for a minute too. She been working on the cloud side, on the infrastructure as code side for a minute.
Dope. I'm gonna have to get her on. That's dope to hear, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, so here's a question. What are cloud interviews like?
They range, man. They range, man. Like, I'll say this, man. I've had interviews that are on a whiteboard, and I've had interviews where I'm just talking like this, right? Um, I actually, for the period of time, I like the whiteboard stuff. I know a lot of people didn't like the whiteboard stuff, but I like the whiteboard stuff. I like being able to like draw out the servers and the network and things and all that kind of stuff. I'm a visual person too, so I enjoy that.
Right.
But I've had code challenges. I remember one time I did an interview with Netflix. They out the gate code. Here you go. You know, it really varies depending on the company, because each cloud engineering role could require something completely different of you. With my most recent opportunity, my most recent job, I didn't necessarily have a code interview. It was like, you need to be able to communicate what's going on at a very high level. So it was a lot of questions of like, how do you traverse a system? How do you troubleshoot this? If this breaks down, what do you look for? It's a really like kind of like thinking on your toes type situation.
Right.
A lot of my interviews have been. Truth be told, no questions about anything specific that you would see on like an exam have ever came up. If anything, the certifications have just been ways for me to get in the door. Ain't nobody like asking me like intimate questions and technical questions about AWS and how it works and stuff like that. That's never the game. It's usually like just straight up system knowledge and understanding. Like, do you understand how a system works? That's usually how the game has been going. So typically conversational.
Do you need to know about that company's application, or is it just general Linux containers, Kubernetes?
Basic stuff, man. Basic stuff. Like, I wouldn't say basic stuff, but they might get kind of lower level with the specific technologies like a Docker or a Kubernetes. Like, you know, I've heard questions about Kubernetes in interviews that may, you know, be something like, okay, well, all right, so we just deployed a new pod set. We just deployed a new deployment onto a Kubernetes cluster, but for some unnamed reason, client requests are not able to get through. How would you troubleshoot the issue, right? And so then from there, you might start talking about the services, or you might start talking about the ingresses. You might start talking about stuff like that in regards to how exactly does a client request go from the client's computer through a load balancer into a Kubernetes cluster. What are the different pieces of a Kubernetes cluster that might affect a client request? How can you manipulate that thing? There'll usually be questions like that specifically, like how do you troubleshoot it? But if you understand the pieces enough, like I almost look at it like Legos. If you understand it like a little bit like Legos, it helps a lot. It helps a lot. But it's never about the company's application. It's, to be honest with you, I rarely have people having conversations that may refer to a company's application, because every app it's just so unique. Yeah. Every company, the way they put it together is so unique, man. It's never the same. I don't even like the textbook way of teaching things no more, because I'm like, this is not real. Like, right. It's not been that at no job that I've been to. Everybody usually kind of like put together their applications with bubble gum and tape. Yeah. And then you kind of got to figure out your way around it from there. So you really just kind of got to focus on like the fundamentals, to be honest with you.
You know what? That's a good point, because network engineering is the same way. A lot of times when it comes to a business applications or a business network, the foundation, like you said, is the key. Understanding how those protocols are supposed to work, how the technologies are designed, so when they fail, you know how to troubleshoot them, and you also know how to implement them, and you also know the different applications or the different services between their counterparts. You know what I mean?
The dependencies. Yep. Yeah. Yep. That's super critical. It's super critical, because I mean, you every app is kind of the same, but every app ain't the same.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, a client request comes in, a client request goes out. Now the way the logic and the way the infrastructure is implemented, it can change, but for the most part, you're gonna use it's gonna always be a load balancer in there somewhere. You're gonna always need some type of network. You're gonna have some subnets in there. You probably gonna have a database in there. You know the main components, but the way each company like kind of orchestrates everything and how things move and stuff like that, you can't get married to any idea. You just genuinely can't.
Okay. Going back to your first cloud engineer role, how long were you in that position?
A year and a half.
A year and a half. At what point did you say, I'm ready to go to the next level?
Oh man. When I felt like I was getting pushed out the company. I ain't gonna lie. Hey, look, man, when I was at Blinds or at Home Depot, man, like I was super young in my career. Like I was like, I was coming out of a career where I was like just a call center guy. I was just working at a call center for like 5 years, 6 years, something like that. Yeah. And I got my first job at the small agency. And then when I went to Home Depot, it was kind of back into a corporate environment, but I was on the other side. So one thing I never really did a good job of in the beginning of my career, it was like I didn't mince words. And I always was the type of person where I'm gonna let my work show it. Like I'm gonna let my work speak for itself. Right. And that's kind of what it was. And my work will always speak for itself, but that didn't necessarily mean like management was always happy about that. But I'm always big on the betterment of the business. You know what I'm saying? Like going in, tech is a political game, believe it or not, but it's a super political game. It's not as black and white as you want it to be. And like, there are some times where you want to implement technologies or you want to use new tools because, it's going to save us time or it's going to improve processes. And a lot of people might not necessarily want to implement those things because they may be married to a certain way of doing things. And they might feel like it might be some type of job protection. Right. I don't believe in that. I just don't believe in that idea. I believe in like bumping. Like I want to continue to get better to where I can implement these new tools and I can implement all of these new things and we can save time and we can focus on other things. And I think at that time, like I was really trying to move things to Kubernetes at that company. Like we were trying to move stuff. We were trying to break the application down, moving into microservices, moving into Kubernetes, use Terraform to spin up the infrastructure, like really like take it to the next level. And like everybody wasn't with it. And that's what really made me just be like, man, you know what? It's time for me to slide. Cause like it's all of these new technologies and new ways of doing things. And y'all not really big on when to like adopt it. So I'll go into a direction where people are open to the new technology and that's just how we're gonna move. But I don't think they were just the happiest about how transparent I was with my opinions about things, to be real.
Hey, that's part of the game too, is knowing how to communicate, your innovativeness, your thoughts and ideas and where you see the technology's going and how the organization can do things better. Like being able to communicate that effectively that's a skill too. That's part of being a senior. And so, man, did you get any certs or did you just apply for a new position?
Man, I got several new certs. So after that AWS certification, I went crazy on the security side. So I had this whole, man, I went through this moment of like, once I got into the cloud, like getting into the cloud is like entering into a whole new world in tech. It's so many paths you can go down. Like once you just get in it and you know it, like you could just do so much in the cloud. Right. And so at that time, I was really high on the security end of it because at the time, like security was still pretty old school. It's still pretty old school, but like with me having like a little programming skill, having some knowledge of the cloud and starting to gain like understanding of how systems work, I started thinking, I'm like, man, the security game is about to change a lot too, because now it's going to go from like, I got to go into these network appliances. I got to go into these servers and things like that. And shoot, what if I could take a Terraform and set up the network? What if I could take a Terraform or a tool like that to rotate certificates or to configure security groups, to configure firewalls? So when I kind of started getting into that mindset, I went and got a CCNA cyber ops certification. At the time, they were offering, they had just came out with the certification, and I guess they just wanted people to try it.
Yeah.
And so I just signed up for it, and they gave me the class for free and let me take the exam for free and the whole nine. I was like, oh, it's lit. So I took that. Once I got that certification, then I went and got the Security Plus. All at the same time. I was still learning about Kubernetes and Golang and Terraform. Just spending all my extra time just really like diving deep into those tools and then kind of boosting up my security knowledge. And so, I mean, while I was there at Home Depot, I ain't gonna cap. Like I was on it. Like I was trying to learn. I was eating everything. I was trying to learn as much as I could. I was trying to level up. I was trying to really level up. Like I was really trying to level up. I can't lie. So the CCNA Cyber Ops and the Security Plus were actually the next two certifications I actually got while I was there before I went to my next position.
Dope. Before we talk about that next position, I want to talk about something that I want people to catch, especially those of you that are looking to advance your career. In your cloud engineer position, you said you were eating everything and trying to level up. How did you go about that in your position? Were you able to do projects? Was it certain technologies that you were working on? Like, how did you know the way to advance your skills in that position?
And, you know, I would say the biggest thing was that I was just looking for problems to fix to help developers. That was like my whole thing, man. Like, I'm the type of person, like, I'm a big team player guy. I'm the type of guy that's like, I want to help the team out. Like, if I can set the screen to get you open for a three, if I can box a dude out to help you get the rebound, if I could do anything like that, that's what I'm going to do. But I was just doing that from an operational standpoint. But also because nobody else around me were looking at the type of problems that I was trying to solve the way I was looking at them. It also gave me a new opportunity to experiment with tooling that nobody was even thinking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, one of the big problems I saw while I was there was we used to use this like old Python or some old scripts to go spin up our development environments or something like that. And at the time, I had just learned about Golang. And one of the big features in Golang was like Go routines. So I was like, like, what if I use this technology to solve this problem of it taking 30, 40 minutes for developers to spin up a dev environment? And what if this technology can help me to spin it up in, I don't know, a couple of minutes, 5 minutes, however much time. And I would just look at opportunities like that, and I would take my extra time and I would like build projects like that and just bring it to the team. Like, okay, cool. Like, let me see if I can fix this problem over the weekend. And if it works, cool. Like, let's bring it to the team and let's see what happens. And that's really kind of how I kind of started leveling up. I just started tackling like these different kind of problems that people just didn't care to solve. Like, nobody cared to solve that problem about the dev environments. People were pretty complacent with it. And it's funny when you go into a new environment and you're younger and you just feel like you got something to prove.
Right.
Like, when you feel like you got something to prove, the kind of task that you'll take on to prove to people like, hey, like, I belong here too. You know what I'm saying? I belong here too. And that was like my whole thing. Like, I didn't want to get stuck doing the same thing and getting caught up looking like the same kind of engineers that were around me. I'm like, no, I want to be different. So I found new tools. I found new ways of doing things. I tackled new problems. Like, I just wanted to do something different. So that's really kind of how I leveled up, to be honest with you, just looking at finding new problems or problems that people didn't even care about solving around me.
Hey, that's dope. Aaron, Mastermind, who's one of our moderators in the chat, he mentioned something in our Twitter Space interview that we did about, in technology, we get paid to solve problems. And you were you mentioned and described the perfect example of how you've been able to level up your career, because you are a team player and you have the business in mind and how to solve problems in the business always in mind. And I think a lot of engineers and developers need to keep that in mind when they're in these positions. What's your thoughts?
Absolutely. Like, look, you there to do a job. Like, let's be absolutely clear. Like, working in tech it has its ups, it has its downs.
Yep.
But the reality is that you're there to move the business forward and to think about details and aspects of the business that the business that doesn't really have time to think about. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're there as an engineer, you're on the ground level. You're on the ground level of the business processes. You really get to see them unfold. You get to see the gaps. You get to see the holes, and you get to make assessments on those things, because at the end of the day, like, to the stakeholders, to management, to leadership, VPs, directors, whoever, like, you're like, they just see an abstraction over what you do. Right. You're the person actually implementing the abstraction. Right. So you have a lot more power and a lot more say so in what's going on. And you really, I think sometimes we give ourselves credit for it, because at the end of the day, the business can only, I mean, they can make decisions on the direction that they want to move, but they might not necessarily be able to make decisions on how they want to implement the processes that's gonna take them in that direction.
Right.
And that's where you come in, right? So you there to solve problems. You there to pay attention to things that they're not there to pay attention to. Like, that's kind of also the freedom of working in tech, especially when you start working on stuff like the cloud. Like, yeah, like you get this opportunity to actually make decisions for the business. Yeah. That's the whole point.
Something that I want to ask you is that when we talk about solving problems and implementing these solutions, right? My question to you is, how do you get the business to see the problems that you solve? Because that's a big piece of it too. You know, is like, yeah, you don't want to toot your own horn, but you have to let people know the things that you are doing. So how do you go about that?
Man, one of the most underrated skills I see out of every engineer, including myself, and I'm really working on it while I'm at Elastic right now, is interpreting data, collecting data and interpreting data. I think it's pretty easy for us to go on the server and say, you know, saturation looks like this, memory looks like this, CPU looks like this, network IO looks like this, da 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 da. But what does that mean to the business? Because if you go and tell a manager, hey man, our CPU is at 80% right now, you know, what do you want to do? A, B, C, X, Y, Z. Like, they don't care. Like, they don't care. They care about the customer. They care about, is this affecting us making a sale? Is this affecting us doing an ABC? Or how is this blocking us? How is this impeding us? So being able to collect data, being able to actually pay attention enough to your environment to say, these are things that we need to measure so that we can take it to stakeholders and say, hey, this thing right here is taking us X amount of time to pay attention, or this thing right here is really a roadblock for us. It's probably the greatest thing that you can do, because if you can start looking at your environment and you can start saying, okay, like, let's start setting up some metrics or some data here so that I can put it in front of a manager so I can build my case for why we need to put energy or put resources into solving this problem. That's like half the battle. Right. Like that's pretty much half the battle right there. Like, is trying to make the case, because, you know, as my current director, Dave, says now, you know what I'm saying? Like, more data, less feelings. More data, less feelings. Like, that's really the game.
You know, I watch somebody on YouTube and he often says, get out your feelings because there's no money there. And I live by that. I live by that. You know what I mean? That's dope. That's dope.
Nah, it ain't no money there.
Man. Yo, this interview has been on fire, bro. We at an hour. You still got some time?
Bro, let's do it. I'm with it.
Okay. All right. So I want to keep telling this story about your career, and then we're going to take some more questions from the chat. Now, you started off as a software developer. About 8 months later, you became a cloud engineer. Now, about a year and a half later, you switched to your next position. What position is that?
This is my first official role as a site reliability engineer at a company called Schlumberger. If y'all know anything about the oil industry or the energy industry, Schlumberger basically like owned the whole service industry when it comes to oil and stuff like that. So I was working on them. I was working on I was on probably the biggest project at the time. It was this application called Gaia, which was basically pretty much like Google Maps, but for seismic data. And I was the SRE for that team.
Nice. How long did you stay in that position?
A little over a year, a little over a year.
Wow.
Clearly y'all see I don't stay in positions too long. But I was there a little over a year. And man, it was that was just a different level up. I'm not gonna lie. That was at that time for sure my most intimidating position because now I'm in a room with PhDs. Now I'm in a room with people that got PhDs in cloud computing, masters in computing. These are like, when you start going to companies like a Schlumberger, like they getting the Stanfords, the best of the best, and all that kind of stuff. And here I am. I don't even got a degree. I don't even have a certification. And I'm like, how in the world did I get here?
Yeah.
How in the world did I get here? And that was, man, that was a game changing position for sure.
Man, 2 years in and you're an SRE. I think that's dope. Let me ask you this
It,
though. In a company, how many SREs in it? How many SREs are there? Like, is it just one, or are you like the top dog? How does that work?
so my situation was pretty interesting when I got there. Like on that team, it was two SREs. It was one of two. So one guy, the gentleman that I was working with, he was older. He was probably in mid to late 40s. He had been working for Schlumberger for a minute, and then it was me. And so we were actually embedded on that team.
Mm.
And so the way that SRE was organized at that company was that SRE was basically, so you would basically have like a top level SRE. And so for people that want to know, the SRE is a site reliability engineer. That's what it means. Basically there was a team of SREs kind of like at the top that kind of like set the framework and dictated what SRE was going to be for each team. And then you had SREs embedded on each team that actually implemented what SRE or however SRE was actually defined for the company. And basically, I was just kind of there implementing SRE for that team.
Okay, so let's break that down even further. If let's say company XYZ has an application, for that
Mm-hmm.
application, will there be like a SRE for each microservice of that application, or an SRE for that application?
It could be both. It could be both.
Okay.
It really depends on the size of the company. An application that's a lot more complex, broken down into a lot more different parts, maybe servicing a lot more customers. Yeah, you might have an SRE for each component, right? Because let's say you have a networking component. Let's say you have a database component. Let's say you have an actual service component. You may have an SRE for each team because the SRE might specifically have background knowledge or experience in dealing with databases. So they might only focus on the reliability of databases for the entire application or for that particular service. Or you might have an SRE that has a background in software development. So they understand how to troubleshoot software issues or bugs or things that come in. So they might just know software. You might even have an SRE that just is all networking. Like they just have a background in networking and they just troubleshoot networking issues. So that's kind of the beauty of an SRE is like, even though SRE is like it kind of seems like an all-encompassing title. SRE is kind of growing into a skill. It's kind of growing into a position where you might have a networking SRE, you might have a database SRE, you might have a software SRE. Like there are different types of SRE depending on what the architecture of the application is, as well as whatever the size or the services or however the company kind of has this application kind of broken down into.
Okay. Kind of digging a little deeper. When it comes to, let's say, a standard SRE, site reliability engineer, what's the typical day to day like, and what are like the typical responsibilities? Shout out to KO for that question.
Oh yeah, so it depends on each team. I'll definitely speak for what it's been like for me in my last two roles. So first off, let's start off with the typical set of a SRE. Typically, SREs are definitely pretty well versed in like infrastructure. So there'll be some type of coding like with a Terraform in there, right? So like in both roles that I've had, like I've written Terraform, period. Like if we have a service or application, I would be responsible for setting up the VPC, setting up the subnets, making sure everything's deployed correctly, making sure the metrics are set up the way we need to. I might sit down and actually talk with the team, with the development team, and say, okay, cool, we're about to introduce this service into production. So where can it break? All right, cool. So, and if it does break, how do we recover it? And like, how do we know it's broken? You know what I'm saying? What do we need to monitor? Like, I might start having those conversations with the development team before we even take it to production. So it could be from, all right, I'll write the infrastructure. I set the infrastructure up, ready to go, so they can deploy it. It can go to, all right, I'm sitting down with the development team to get a better understanding of the application, what we need to monitor, what dashboards we need to set up. And then it may also be another conversation of, what does the disaster recovery process look like for this service? So if this service does go down in a region, or if this service goes down in some particular area, like, how do we recover it? How do we roll back? Like, that's typically kind of like the range of conversations, or the range of things that you kind of end up doing as an SRE, typically across the board.
I love that. I've always been interested in the SRE role, but the one thing that, when you mention orchestrating the infrastructure with Terraform and services and VPCs and all of that, where does the cloud engineer and DevOps engineer come into play in that discussion, or the workload for these services and supporting the infrastructure?
You know, it's interesting because whenever people like bring up DevOps, like, one thing I'm pretty particular about is, like, DevOps is a culture. Like, let me be DevOps is more of a culture, and SRE still lives underneath the guise of that culture of DevOps, right? Like, SRE is just kind of like another branch off of that tree, if you will. I mean, a DevOps engineer can do everything. You know, a DevOps engineer might be doing a lot of the same things that a SRE does, to be honest with you. And typically what you'll see is, if you have a DevOps engineer around, they're typically a person that kind of hands off tasks to an SRE. In my current role, we don't even have per se DevOps engineers. We really kind of have, everybody's an SRE, but everybody as SREs, each person take responsibility for a different part of the life cycle, of the application life cycle. You might have some SREs that focus on the build. You have some SREs that focus on the release. You have some SREs that focus on the operations. So, you know, sometimes you, as an SRE, you may be doing DevOps work or what would be considered DevOps work. Right. So, you know, typically, at this point, I almost consider SREs kind of like the Swiss Army knife of tech, or at least Swiss Army knife of the cloud, because typically those are the people that have like the most, they have the most knowledge of kind of like how the entirety of the system works. You know what I'm saying? From front to back, they have the most knowledge. Typically, you'll find just developers and engineers just know their service. Like, I'll notice that like really, really good engineers definitely have knowledge of networking and how the other things work, but a lot of times you'll find engineers don't even know how the thing gets deployed. Like, they don't even know how the metrics are set up or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? Typically that's the SRE. So typically SREs are usually like working with developers. They're working with DevOps engineers. They're working with you know, stakeholders and leaders and stuff like that. That's why I kind of call them the Swiss Army knife.
Dope. Man, I appreciate that. Man, you've dropped so much game today. I think it's really inspiring that you've, for one, you know, started your career 4 years ago, let alone after 2 years became an SRE, and now, you know, you're doing big things at the company you're at now. So salute to you, bro. Thank you.
Man, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, I'm going to get some questions from the chat. If you all have questions, please drop them. And I'm going to kind of go through here. And if you can scroll through if you see anything that stands out to you too, bro.
Yo, they going crazy in the chat. Hey, shout out to y'all. Like, like, y'all going crazy in here.
You've been dropping that knowledge, man.
Man, this is dope. I see a question from Sam. Sam Jones. What services does your company offer as far as IaaS, infrastructure as a service, PaaS, platform as a service, and SaaS type of cloud services? I work for Elastic. I work for a company called Elasticsearch. So we build Elasticsearch, Logstash, Kibana, all of the things. I work on the cloud side. I work on the reliability side of it. And so as far as like what services we offer basically the elk stack in the cloud. So like if you were to go to elastic.co and you were to sign up and you want to go set up a Elasticsearch cluster with Logstash and Kibana and all of the things hooked up, yeah, that's basically what we offer. That is very much so our product. So and I'm responsible for making sure it's working the way you expect it to work. So and so that's really what it is. We don't offer any IaaS services. We don't offer any PaaS services, but we definitely offer a SaaS. So
Bet. So Reggie's contact information is in the description of this video. Y'all make sure y'all go subscribe to his YouTube channel. Follow him on Twitter. Show him as much love and appreciation as possible because he's been dropping this game all night.
Please do. I would love to see y'all, man. Y'all want to learn about the cloud, man? Hit me up. I'm always open to giving game, whether it's on Twitter and soon to be YouTube. I got a couple YouTube videos up, but like y'all give me ideas. Y'all tell me what y'all want me to talk about as far as the cloud, and I'll tell y'all. Like that's really kind of how the game go.
All day. All right. I see a question from MVP. What is that? VGFX. It says, "Can you touch on SysOps cloud engineer?"
Yeah, SysOps. So SysOps is gonna be more. To me, a SysOps engineer is gonna be more of a person that really works with the hardware. So like, if I was a SysOps engineer, the skill set I would primarily be really focused on is really Terraform, to be honest with you. I probably focus on infrastructure as a code, being able to spin up environments with code. And then on the other side, being able to put together dashboards and metrics, collecting logs from the application and basically creating alarms and things like that based off of those, based off of logs that are coming into the system. That's kind of what a SysOps engineer, they don't really focus so much on the application as they do as the infrastructure in the system, in the upkeep of said system, in the performance of said system. So that's kind of more what a SysOps engineer is from my perspective.
Hey, when you talk about dashboards, could you kind of go into detail what you mean by that? Is there a certain tool that people, because we know when it comes to orchestration and infrastructure as code, you mentioned Terraform, but when it comes to creating these dashboards, is there any tools or any platforms people need to learn?
Grafana and Prometheus are pretty much the de facto tools for setting up dashboards and metrics and logging stuff like that. That's kind of been the de facto tool set.
Okay.
Outside of them, Cheap Plug, Elastic, Kibana, you know what I'm saying? The Elk stack is pretty good for being able to collect data and all of the things, and definitely using Kibana to set up dashboards, as well as setting up watchers and stuff like that to actually like make actions off of like data that comes into the system. And another one I'm gonna throw out there as far as like setting up metrics and dashboards that I got really familiar with while I was at Home Depot was Splunk. Yeah. Splunk was another one that was pretty popular, and I'm pretty sure people from the networking and security side are actually really familiar with Splunk. That seems like a pretty popular tool in those worlds. So Prometheus and Grafana are probably the big tools from a cloud, or really from an open source perspective, when it comes to setting up metrics and graphs. Then you got Elastic, the Elk stack, that would be another one, and then you got Splunk. Those would probably be the three tools that I would look into when you talk about setting up metrics and collecting data and all that kind of stuff.
All right. And my last question that I might ask myself, how much did your software development knowledge help you in the DevOps world?
A lot. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not, and truth be told, I remember the tweet that really kind of triggered this whole kind of snowball effect was I went on Twitter talking about like I just don't believe that learning how to program is the right initial skill set to learn when it comes to like getting your tech career off the ground. I thought networking was, and I still think that. I hold very, very firmly to that. Right. But once you understand the networking, I'd be lying if I said the next skill that you should learn is programming. And I'm not saying you need to become a programmer. You know what I'm saying? Like let's make it very, very clear. You don't need to become a front end engineer or a programmer or anything like that in order for that knowledge to be useful to you. Like half the battle is communication in tech. Like let me just be very, very clear. Half the battle in tech, especially in the cloud, is communication. Right. And just being able to have enough understanding of development and development tools and development environments and so on and so forth. Like just having enough knowledge to have conversations with developers and engineers about things they need to be focused on and things that they should be working on or places where you can help out at. Man, it can make a world of difference. It can make a world of difference. So no, you don't need to become a programmer. You don't need to become a developer. But knowing enough to be dangerous, man, highly recommended. Highly recommended.
Dope. Jeffrey Hernandez said, "What language should someone learn?"
The one that they feel comfortable with, the one that makes sense to them. To be real with you, because like even at our company, man, it's people that's learning. It's like we got Golang in our environment, we got Scala in our environment, we got Python in our environment, we got TypeScript in our environment. And it really just depends on the tools that you're trying to build. Right. So even on my team, like I am responsible for the chatbots. So we have a chatbot that's built in TypeScript that I'm responsible for, and then we have a chatbot that's built in Python. And it all circles around incident management. So that's not what you would typically hear, which would be like a Golang or something like that. Like that's not never the case. So I mean, you can really, I mean, if you had to start, I would say start with Python. It's probably the most ubiquitous tool to use. That's a tool that I've seen in every single environment without fail. But once you get in there, man, I'm always pretty big on like learning the language, using the right tool for the right job. Like if you're working on something that you're trying to like, you care about performance, then yeah, I'm probably gonna tell you to go use a Golang. But if you're just trying to get a chatbot off the ground and you want to use like a simple or easy to use library and you can go look at other people's code to kind of get ideas on how to pencil this thing together, then yeah, go use a Python. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like go with what makes sense. Don't, you know what I'm saying? Don't feel like you got to be like this programmer savant or this coder savant. Just go with the tool, go with a language that makes sense.
Dope. All right, I'm going to talk about, I say, you got 2 more questions in you, bro?
Oh, for sure.
All right. So Gifted Lane, appreciate you. Shout out to Gifted Lane. My boy Deshaun. Deshaun said, I think this is interesting what he's saying. He said, the cheat code, find people in your org that need stuff that you know. I like that. Build relationships. I like that. Yeah.
Pretty much.
For sure,
that's really the game.
I appreciate the moderators for holding it down. Now, this question, Gifted Lane, Shayla, is from Jay Nelly. The question is, how much programming or scripting do you actually use in your day-to-day with the cloud?
Ooh, that's a great question. Yeah. So the thought process for SRE is you should be doing 50% like programming, working on tools and stuff like that, and then the other 50% like, you know, operational work, tool work, things like that. At this point, man, I would say that programming has began to take up a lot more of my day. A lot of it is because I kind of have chosen it to be that. Like I want to be more of an engineer with my hands on the wheel a little bit. Right. But man, I'm gonna be honest with you. It really don't even have to be that. I know SREs that don't program. That don't program at all. There are SREs that strictly work on processes and documentation and finding holes and gaps in the system and putting together postmortems or focusing on alarms. Like, I think there's this misnomer that you have to learn how to program or you have to know how to like script ABC XYZ amount in order for you to be an SRE or to find success in this role.
Right.
When in all honesty, like my tech lead does not program. She don't program. Matter of fact, she can't stand programming. But when I say her understanding of the system is just next level, like she knows the system better than these engineers do. Like she understands where all the skeletons are. She understands all of the things, and that actually is what makes her a super duper valuable SRE. So I mean, I can sit here and tell you like, oh yeah, my day it consists of maybe 4 or 5 hours out of the day I'm programming,
right?
But you find the right position or you find a good role, like you might be programming 0 hours of the day. You might be focusing on setting up dashboards, putting together data for stakeholders, updating documentation for other engineers. Like that's just as valuable, if not more valuable, than somebody that can just program for 8 hours a day.
That's good to know. That's good to know, because I know when I started, I don't know if people still have this fear, but when I first started, I chose to be in the system administration, network engineering side, because I didn't want to learn how to code. You know what I mean? It was one of those things like, nah, I don't want no part of that. But, back in the day, when you learned how to code, they were trying to teach you C or Java. You know what I mean? And that's...
Yeah. Look, I can't stand C. I can't stand C++. I can't stand Java. I don't like those languages. Like, let me just make it clear. I'm not a fan of them languages at all. Because I don't like the learning curve that comes with those languages. Like when you start talking about a language like C, right? Like you talking about a language that forces you to like handle your own garbage collection. Who does that? Like no modern language is forcing you to like clean up all of your own any memory that you allocated within your code and stuff like that. Like nobody's doing that. And it's not fair either. And because there are better tools out there. I don't think the road to learning how to program is what it probably was when you came into the game. I think it's probably way, way easier. And the languages that people are using are a lot easier to use too. So, but no, you don't. I don't think you need to learn how to program. But if you did choose to learn how to program, I think there are abundantly more resources out there than there used to be. Like, I'm gonna be real. I think the hardest part about learning how to program is finding a project that's realistic enough to actually justify like going into an interview and being like, I built a tool like this that a company can see and say, oh, this makes sense for us. Like, I've been thinking about that a lot as an SRE. What are tools that you can build that are actually good, are really representative of something that you might see in the actual environment? And to be honest with you, the best tool I can honestly say that a person can learn as an SRE or how to build is probably gonna be like a chat bot. Like, go get Python, go get like Urbot, and learn how to hook up a chat bot to like a Slack channel, or learn how to hook up like a chat bot to like, Microsoft Teams or something like that.
Right.
Because I guarantee you 9 times out of 10 in any cloud environment or any tech environment that you have, people are communicating through some type of Slack or some Microsoft Teams or something like that. And learning how to put together a chatbot is probably a really good tool, just a really good skill to learn. So, and that's a good project to have. So, I mean, no, you ain't got to learn how to program, but if you want to learn how to program, the resources are there. But I don't think you should feel like obligated to learning it. I think you'll get more out of like learning how to network first.
Hey, that'd be a dope challenge. Build a chatbot and host it in the cloud. That's a good one. That's the CoolBlkNerd challenge. Build a chatbot and host it in AWS or Azure or something. That'd be a dope challenge.
Straight up. And containerize it too.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That'd be dope. All right. The last question, Shayla, let me see where to go. All right. This question is from Colden Evelyn Miami. Shout out to Colden Evelyn Miami. It says, what resources you use to train and any projects you built to become an SRE. Yeah, so what resources did you use to become an SRE?
Oh man. So for the longest, my favorite website was Linux Academy. Dog. That website had everything. They had everything but like an actual like lessons to teach you how to program. But they starting to do that too. But I guess it's A Cloud Guru now. That was that now that Linux Academy and A Cloud Guru has really came together. I mean, you know, at some point in this journey, like I had to figure out I'm gonna have to pay to play a little bit. But that was a resource that just kept giving, like to the point where I don't care about spending the $200, $300 a year. Even if I don't log on to A Cloud Guru or Linux Academy, even if I don't log on to, I'm going to pay them $300 a year just to have access to the platform so I can learn new skills and learn new things, because I just see the value in it. Even if I logged into it and use it for 3 months out of the year to learn one new skill, man, like those couple of skills I learned on that platform have paid me dividends in the long run, like tenfold in the long run. So I would definitely say, you know, A Cloud Guru would definitely be the place where I would say, if you want some really good solid resources on how to upskill as an SRE, whether it's in understanding how to use Linux or understanding how to use containers, understanding how to use some of these really popular cloud tools, that would be the place I would go to.
Hey, and when y'all go to A Cloud Guru, tell them Reggie sent you so they can cut him a check.
Hey man, I'm just saying.
Real
it's
talk.
on the way.
Real talk. That's dope. Now, was there, when going through the A Cloud Guru Linux Academy, did they have any projects?
Man, so they actually have some pretty cool, the way they set it up. So they have courses that you can take. And then they also have started doing like these little small projects or these small exercises where they launch you into a cloud environment. So you go in there, they call them labs. So you basically, you set up a lab and you can go in there and they basically say, okay, in this lab, you're going to set up a Kubernetes cluster or something like that. And you might set up a Kubernetes cluster through the AWS console or whatever they throw you into. And it's just a lot of like little projects like that that's really, really dope, that really help kind of bridge that gap of like learning the concepts and the themes that you might read in the docs and maybe in books that you may collect versus like actually applying those same things. So yeah, they got little projects, stuff like that. They don't necessarily have projects that you can put into like a GitHub or anything like that. I think you would probably need to tap in with somebody to kind of figure out what would be like a good GitHub project for an SRE or a cloud engineer. But just a heads up, I think if y'all just want my advice on what a good project would be for a cloud engineer at SRE, CLI tool, any type of CLI tool, an example of how to build out a backend API, or, you know what I'm saying, like I said, a chatbot for sure.
Dope. Yeah, I did see one challenge from somebody to where you host your resume in AWS or Azure or something, and that's like a whole project. You build like a front end website and have some type of back end to host your resume, and then you post it public so people can see your resume online. That's like a whole challenge or something that they had. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, nah, those are dope. Those are dope. Like, you know, those things help, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the cloud is such a big, it's a huge concept. It's a huge thing to tackle. Like, let me not cap. It's a pretty big thing to tackle. But those small little projects like that, man, like you can just, it's almost like, I like to teach the cloud as if it's like each service is like a Lego piece.
Yeah.
And like you're just putting all of these different Lego pieces together to build out this whole, you know what I'm saying, this whole application, to build out this whole environment.
Right.
And I think usually when you kind of look at it like that, it's a lot easier to digest.
Dope. Well, hey man, Reggie, I thank you for coming on tonight, bro.
Man, thank you, man. Thank you for having me, man. Thank you. And thank everybody that came through, man. Like, I'm like looking at, I'm like, dang, people really wrote it out. Like everybody wrote it out the whole time, and people was active the whole. Like, man, this is amazing. Like, this is amazing.
For sure. So, like I said, y'all make sure y'all go subscribe to Reggie's YouTube channel. Follow him on Twitter. Show him love. Show him support. And Reggie, before we out of here, you got any words of encouragement or advice that you have for the audience?
And roll the dice on you, period. You know what I'm saying? Never, if it's a position out there that say it needs 10 years of experience, roll the dice every single time. Roll the dice on you every single time, because you'll be amazed at how far you can go in the amount of time that you can go when you just take a chance on you. And ain't nobody gonna take a chance on you like you gonna take a chance on yourself. So, man, don't be afraid to roll that dice.
I love it. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.